stories of working women and men. This is our voice and our community. We are Nevada with your hosts, Leonard Cardinale and Nick DiArcangelo.
Come on, rise up. Come on, rise up. Come on, rise up. Come on, rise up. Come on, rise up.
Today's show is jam-packed with tons of information that will shape the future of Nevada for years to come. The 77th session of Nevada Legislature is about to start on February 4th, 2013. And this is a place for you to find out which changes are being proposed to Nevada state laws and administrative codes, and to find out which legislators are pushing these bill drafts out of committee to be voted on. Your co-host, Nick DiArcangelo and Leonard Cardinale, will keep you informed every step of the way. Do you have a question about how a bill draft request becomes law or dies on the floor of the Senate or Assembly, or worse, becomes a zombie bill? Zombies! Give us a call right here at KLAV AM. We are Nevada Talk Radio Show. Phone lines are open right now. Give us a call with your questions or comments. 702-731-1230. That's 702-731-1230. And follow us online at www.KLAV1230am.com.
The Echo says it all.
Great. Well, good evening, and welcome to We Are Nevada Talk Radio Show with your co-hosts Leonard Cardinale and Nick DiArcangelo. Good evening, Nick.
Good evening, Leonard, and welcome to all of our listeners. Tonight and every single Friday, you'll find us here on KLAV 1230 AM or live streaming on the internet at www.KLAV1230am.com. And thank you to all of our internet listeners throughout the country and the world.
Wow, what a week. I mean, I'm not sure where we're going to start. I know we have a lot of news. We have a lot of legislative information to get out there to everyone. And the listeners, I'm sure, are just hungry for information because there are so many different items going around, and the news has been pretty good at updating, but they seem to be shying away from the union message a little bit. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
I don't know, but all I know is that I'll tell you, we've got a packed show today where we're going to be talking about our favorites. The latest bills that have come up that we like to poke fun at, and of course the collective the bills that are threatening collective bargaining, and as always we'll talk a little bit about the public employee retirement system. But I got to tell you, all that stuff is loaded in the back end of the show, and I'm not even sure we're going to get out of news because there was so much going on this week. How about North Korea?
What
the heck?
Wow. The White House actually said this week that they would not be surprised, I believe was the quote, if they decide to launch a missile. And North Korea is saying that they have some short-range, quote-unquote, nuclear-type weapons that they may be launching. And they're upset about the war games or the military practice that's going on in South Korea with the United States. And it's really interesting. And the reason I bring that up is that's pretty important news because, they're on the verge. They actually sent out emails and flyers, from what I understand, North Korea did, letting everyone know in the consulates and in the surrounding area to go ahead and go ahead and move their people out because they can't guarantee their safety.
Yeah, I know. And, with all the talk of the politics and what this means and whether they can launch these things and whether they will and what impact it'll have, all I could think of is the picture that my friend, local comedian Carla Ray, posted on her Facebook of these really goofy hats that they wear. I'm just saying. I was looking at it. It had to be like their upper military strategists and things.
Is goofy a subjective word?
Those hats were just they were unique. They were
unique.
Yeah.
That is no. They were goofy. Maybe that's to keep the rays out of their brain. I don't know. But moving into national news quickly, I know we're not going to talk too much about unemployment, but it is down to 7.6%. And, here's the thing. How does that affect unions and public employees? Because eventually these local government employers are going to run out of excuses, right? I mean, the CPI is going up, inflation is going up, Dow Industrial is up, S&P is up. The futures took a little bit of a hit this week because, they're looking at how are they going to balance this budget, with the president, and now they're saying they may the Social Security contributions, the COLAs, right? The cost of living increases may stop on Social Security and in exchange for some raises on taxes, and that's kind of where they're headed. So there's some uncertainty, and I think that's why the futures are slowing down a little bit. But overall, I think the government employers who employ public employees are running out of excuses not to hire public employees and give the people the services that they agreed to give them for their tax money.
Well, and if you take a look at it on the local level, there was news this week that Clark County commissioners voted to give themselves I think it was a 10% raise, 8 or 10%.
It was 10% on the books.
Oh, it's incredible. Tomorrow, you know what I'm going to do on Monday morning? I think we should all do. Every listener out there and every working
Can we vote?
person
Can you and
throughout
I just
Nevada,
vote on our own pay?
You should walk in on Monday morning and tell your supervisor, tell your boss. You know what? I voted over the weekend. I had a vote with my partner, with the kids if they're there, or heck, even the goldfish in the bowl, and the fish raised its fin, and it was a 2-0. It was unanimous. I vote to raise my salary by 10%.
Right, and
that'll go over well.
That's
right?
interesting because that segues into the emergency declaration that North Las Vegas has, and as a result of the emergency declaration and the Committee on Local Government Finance asking the city of North Las Vegas how you're going to balance your budget and et cetera, because they have these lawsuits pending, and so they didn't have very much of an answer during that meeting because I was there. However, Mr. Christopher Nielsen, the executive director of the State of Nevada Department of Taxation, sent a letter to the Attorney General, Cortez Masto,
right.
and asked her, if there's a severe financial emergency and the state taxation committee takes over a local government entity, what happens in the emergency declaration? Can they suspend contracts? And the answer in a nutshell is
no.
Not only no, but heck no. So anyway, it goes in a couple of different directions, and I don't want to go in all those directions. But one of the opinions that was footnoted, and I will read it for the listeners. It says, although NRS 288-150, number 4, permits a local government employer to suspend collective bargaining agreements in emergencies such as military action, natural disaster, or civil disorder, it does not include fiscal emergencies that are specifically addressed in NRS 288-150 2W. Which in 2W, that kind of says that if there's a financial emergency situation, that the local government employer can go to the employee organization that's represented and ask them to sit down and reopen the contract and talk about negotiations and possibly concessions. And they suggest that you use the CPI as an indicator, the Consumer Price Index. So if you see the Consumer Price Index going down, that might be an indicator. But the problem with that is the reason why none of the employers want to use that is because the CPI has
I know why.
steadily going up, and it's actually projected to go up between 3.5 and 4.5% over the next year. So so no one's going to hit up Section W of Section 2 and say we want to base it on the CPI. So interesting letter from the Attorney General, and I guess we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But we sent it out to all the members, and news spread fairly quickly, which ties into Monday. On Monday, in the Senate Government Affairs Committee in the legislature, they will be hearing Senate Bill 439, which basically was proposed by the committee and asks that when local government employers do suffer from a fiscal emergency, that they're able to suspend contracts, and that's kind of what the language says within that bill, and that's being heard, I believe, 1:30 p.m. on Monday.
And that's something that we're definitely gonna have to watch because, and this is one of the reasons why this We Are Nevada Public Employee Coalition exists, and as you'll hear throughout this entire show tonight, is that there are bills that. There are bills that we support that we believe will help strengthen the middle class working families in Nevada, and then there's bills that we certainly oppose, and they're a big concern, and we have to keep an eye on them. And this is definitely, one of these bills that we have to watch and make sure that we're there representing, and that our voice and our impact is heard.
There's a couple of items and that we're going to talk about from the Latino community, and in one we made history, and in the other we're about to make history. The first Latino Lobby Day was this week.
Yeah, Wednesday, April 3rd, marked the very first Latino Lobby Day in Carson City, Nevada, and a group of leaders and community partners, and also the We Are Nevada organization, and also our legislators. Senator Mo Dennis had a press conference, and Senator Ruben Kuhn were there, and they made a point of saying that this was the very first Latino Lobby Day, and it's a very significant event.
Yeah, and Senator Menendo in his
yep.
Transportation Committee in the Senate, they heard Senate Bill 303 and more than packed, 2 full rooms full of supporters, and people were in the hallway, and a bunch of us went up and testified on the driving privilege bill. And ACLU was supporting it, Plan, Progress Now. There were several groups across the board, Latino groups. We had some of the assembly personnel, some of the elected come from the assembly and support the bill. Olivia Diaz and Lucy Flores was there, and Irene Bustamante. All assembly women from the assembly side came down in support. And I did testify on behalf of law enforcement, saying that we felt this driving privilege license was a good idea because you can't use it for federal ID. You can't get on a plane by using this as ID. You can't use it locally to cash checks, so it's actually not ID. The only thing you can do with it is drive. But in order to get the driver's privilege ID, you have to take a written test and a driving test. So people are out there who are, immigrants, undocumented people are out there, and they're driving anyway because they have to go to work and they have to go to school and they have to drive their kids around and they have to be productive in their lives, and they're going to drive anyway. Yeah. So if they have this driving privilege license, then what I testified to is at least they'll know the rules of the road and they will understand how to drive.
Right. Well, and because this is a town where there's unfortunately, it's there, but it's not a reliable infrastructure as far as public transportation. And, this all goes to the larger issue of immigration reform. And, we need it. We need comprehensive immigration reform now. And our immigration system, it's not working. It's broken, and we need real and meaningful reform that's going to create a roadmap to citizenship for immigrants who've been part of the communities for years, who've been in our communities, like we're talking about, have been driving, going to work, things like that. And, the aspiring Americans who contribute to our economy and pledge allegiance to our country, they want to contribute to make to our greatness, both the state and the country.
Well, let me take another moment for the people that say, well, this sounds like it's going to cost us money. Actually, it's not.
Right.
It did have a fiscal note, and it's going to be $22 for the actual privilege license. And what they figured out that if about 60 to 62,000 people will join in the first year alone, and it'll be a positive 500,000. In other words, the money will come in over the actual cost. And they, one of the senators, Senator Hardy, asked me, he said, hey, how does this how does it look on a traffic stop when you pull someone over who doesn't have any ID on them? And I said, well, if you pull someone over for a simple brake light violation and they have ID or they have a privilege license, for instance, you write them a ticket and they go home. Otherwise, if we can't identify them, then yes, and they get booked into jail until we figure out who they are because we have no other way for them to pay their fine. So instead of being booked into jail for no license, no registration, no insurance, this would allow people to just get a ticket for a minor violation and then be able to to go home just like any other citizen.
Yep. Well, and this is the thing. So it was a really busy day, and there were other, the other bills that were being heard, but other than immigration, the other priority is the English language learner fluency, and that's one of the reasons why NSCA is the Nevada State Education Association is proud to be seated on the Latino Leadership Council, is because we're there to support an agenda that benefits the children and the families that teachers and educators serve, and education funding and increased support to programs like English language learner fluency, they're sorely needed. They'll do a lot to help the state. They'll certainly boost graduation rates because students that reach fluency, they graduate. They succeed.
It's exponential. It's across the board. Yeah. It improves their education level. It costs less money later on in life. They're less dependent on social programs. They're less dependent on educational programs. So the money more than pays for itself in the future. And you're investing in the future of Nevada. And I think that's what's important about that particular item. So we did have a good week, and congratulations to the Latinos on their first lobby day, and I did want to mention on the driver's privilege bill, 3 people signed in opposition and checked that they were going to testify. Well, by the time there was so much overwhelming support that the people who were going to testify in opposition they didn't even come up. They never even testified.
Right. Well, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking to myself, boy, if you ever need a reason to bring yourself to either Grant Sawyer or if you're in the north to Carson City to testify on a bill that that we support, I mean, there it is right there, right? There was so much overwhelming support. I mean, I saw the bus that went up there, and there were so many people that were there for Latino Lobby.
The building
that
was
day.
packed.
Yeah, that these voices they certainly make a difference. And again, if you can't appear in person, you can certainly go to the legislative website and so either voice your support or opposition for a bill. So let's move on. There's so much going on. Tell me about
Big news.
Yeah, we should have a
Big news in North.
a big wheel. But then the next up, North Las Vegas.
Yeah, they big news in North Las Vegas this week. They had their local municipal elections for mayor for Ward 1 and Ward 3, and John Lee, who former Senator John Lee, who used to represent a pretty good portion of North Las Vegas, won in the primary with almost 54% of the vote, and he's now the mayor-elect, and soon-to-be former Mayor Sherry Buck will be there for the next couple of months. And congratulations to Councilwoman Anita Wood. She won by 51 or 52% in Ward 3. And Ward 1, Isaac Barone took 45% of the vote against 27% for Jared Hardy. And now they're going to go to a general election. Mm-hmm. So congratulations to former Senator John Lee and Mayor-elect John Lee. And we all certainly look forward to working with him in the city of North Las Vegas. He was on KPNR radio and did an interview. He was in the newspaper, and I think I like his vision. His vision is to improve the image of the city, to stabilize the city financially, to bring in some new businesses. I like where his thinking is at. He's saying 56% of North Las Vegas is not even developed yet. You have I-15, you have 215, you have the railroad that goes straight into North Las Vegas. It has a small private airport. So it's ripe. It's ripe to be a good, productive city. And he certainly has his hands full because it has its share of problems. And I think April 9th, if I'm not mistaken, they're having a financial meeting where I believe the city manager and the city finance director are making a presentation to the elected on April 9th and kind of telling them, but they've already tipped their hands somewhat to us and the employee groups and told us that they're looking at possibly a $20 million shortfall.
Well, we certainly wish him the best of luck. Like you said, he has a tough job that's cut out for him ahead, but that's a nice, good victory for him. And like I said, we worked with him as a state senator, and so next,
wish him well.
Yeah, definitely wish him well. The next thing we have up is there it is.
Wait for it. The letter from the Secretary of State's next.
The letter of the Secretary of State, right? So the Education Initiative, which is the method that NSCA brought to
voter approved. Can we call it that? Can we call it the voter approved?
Voter approved, right? We brought it to the Nevadans and then they qualified this initiative petition and went to the state legislature. And this is the Education Initiative would bring dedicated funding to K through 12 education. So it had 40 days. Within the first 40 days of the legislative session, we're in day 60, by the way, midpoint.
Yeah, halfway there.
They had the first 40 days to make a decision on it, and that did not happen. There was a hearing, but there was no decision made by the legislators, which automatically sent it to the voters in 2014. The Education Initiative,
they punted,
which asks big businesses to pay their fair share to fund education, will appear on the 2014 ballot. Now, ever since the Education Initiative and this fight to provide fair funding for students, there have been opponents, people that don't, that are on behalf of businesses that don't want to pay the taxes, that feel that they enjoy what their tax rate is now.
Well, let me
let
me digress for just a second and explain to the listeners that within that 40 days, a legislature could have voted on a competing measure.
Right.
So what that means is they say, as a legislature, they say, you know what, I don't really, I see where they're going, but it's not really my fit. So here's a competing measure, and then they could have voted on that, and from what I understand, put it on the ballot, right? So now the time went by, and then there's some question on whether or not you could slide a competing measure in at some point between now and when it goes on the ballot. So
and
the governor,
I should go back. There's a reason why that didn't that didn't happen. And the reason why that a competing measure didn't happen is because we have a political system right now that's controlled by a minority, instead of a majority rule, and you have to have the 2/3 vote, and it's a broken system. And so, fortunately, it doesn't kill this petition. It belongs to the people, and it'll go back to the people in 2014. So now, a small group of senators felt that they could put a competing measure out there after this 40 days, and
the governor asked for an opinion, did he not?
Right, the governor did ask for opinion, and from the Secretary of State, and the Secretary said that the Secretary of State said that because there was no vote on IP1 on the initiative petition, that there could not be a competing measure. So look, we're not surprised that there's going to be, and this happened before. This happened with the Supreme Court decision. There are always going to be opponents that are going to try and work every technicality that they can, but it didn't work out. And in this case, the Secretary of State also said that look, this is it's past the time. They missed the deadline. There was not a no vote. A constitutional provision says that there cannot be a competing measure. So this is good. This is a good thing, because now this petition, which again was signed by 150,000 Nevadans, will go on to the ballot without without any type of obstruction or any type of confusion.
Right. And so there was a little bit of competition going on between 6 or so senators that seemed to be working very closely with Senator Mike Roberson. And as you know, a year or so ago, he was saying he was the leader of the Republican caucus, and he was going to do quite the damage this session. But I can tell you that he seems to be someone that is really trying to work with both sides. He came to the Senate Transportation Committee meeting, and he certainly didn't have to. He has committees of his own, and he was a very busy man. And he did come to the committee meeting and support the driving privilege for the Latinos openly. And I thought that knowing that he is, he's a Republican, and there weren't too many Republicans in that meeting backing that, and I thought that was good for a good idea for him to step out and just stand up for what he believes in, instead of towing the the party line, so to speak.
Yeah, no, and this is these are good things, and look, he's trying to address mining, and SGR 15 is something that we obviously support. SGR 15 is it's technically the mining tax issue. And what it does is it says that it moves it forward so that there can be a constitutional amendment, so that in 2015, the issue of mining taxes can be addressed. So this when it comes to more money for things like education and for infrastructure, obviously these are things that work and things that we need. So,
okay, well, let's see what's next. Safe Staffing Bill, Senate Bill 362. So I also sat in on that meeting and watched. So the Safe Staffing Bill is asking that staffing levels remain at an acceptable level in all hospitals, and then they have all these nurses and these medical experts testify, for and against. So the people who are for the safe staffing go up and they say that when you don't have enough staff, it increases heart attacks, and it increases death, and it increases disease, and it's shown that people are otherwise not cared for, and they're spread too thin. So the safety level for the nurses as well as the patients go down. And they have nurse after nurse, medical person after medical person. Al Martinez, president of SEIU, goes up. They have Plan goes up. All the experts, they go up and they testify on this. And then the other side comes up, right? The management and the middle managers and the owners and stuff. And they acted like, almost, I want to, take it from Bill Maher, the bubble.
Right.
It's like they're in this bubble and they're trying to make a point about money and how it's going to hurt the bottom line and stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, didn't anybody hear? Was I the only one who just heard what those other people said? We're talking about people dying and getting sick and disease.
This is the thing. This is what they're focused on. They're focused on, I'm just going to say it, profits over patients. That's what they're focused on, right? But anybody who's been in a hospital and has had a loved one in a hospital can certainly relate to the story of wondering, where's the healthcare provider? Why aren't there more people on this floor? Why, this is what this is all about. This is about having enough people on the floor not just to take care of the patients, but to also make sure that everything's being done, correctly and carefully and in the highest quality and the highest standards that everyone expects. Everybody expects that healthcare should be the absolute best, right? Because
one gentleman that was standing next to me that I don't even to this day I don't know who he was. He leaned over to me while they were testifying and said, "Well, they're acting like it's their money, right? And it's public money. It's tax money. It's not the salary of the public employees comes from taxes, and they're paying for services." And I said, the same thing with police and fire, and especially police. They're like, we need deep cuts to police, and Metro's cutting back on police, and North Las Vegas is cutting back on police, and actually Henderson is the only one that's not. And you say to yourself, well, they're cutting back to save money and cut costs and put money away for what? Because the taxes pay for the services. So what are they saving this money for?
And also, when the group that gave testimony, the health professionals that gave their testimony, they talked about hospital readmissions, and this is what happens if people are in the hospital and there aren't enough people to do things correctly. People get sick and they end up coming back in, and hospitals will be continuing to be penalized for providing poor quality care. And there are some great stories about the problems that are encountered when healthcare professionals are forced to treat too many patients at once. And it just seems so obvious, so black and white. If you have one person that's if there's a 1-to-8 or 1-to-12 ratio,
and they're quoting medical journals. I'm listening to
right.
this, and they're like, well, back in January 2013, that's current. December of 2012, they're quoting, I don't know the journals, but they're quoting journal after journal, and every one of them is saying, we conducted a study, and it's absolutely more dangerous for the patient and the nurses and the medical staff when the ratio goes up. So what I don't understand is, if it's such a no-brainer, why so much resistance?
Well, it's profits over patients. It's about the bottom line, it's about money, and it's about cutting into those profits. And what is acceptable risk, and what is and it's just not. I mean, this is about improving patient care. This is SB 362, Senate Bill 362, and we urge everyone who's listening to it to support it and to voice their support for safe staffing ratios.
Our friends at SEIU and the medical people will be keeping a very close eye on this one as we move forward.
Oh yeah, I like this thing.
What's next?
Oh well,
our friend is this our friends NPRI?
They're just we need some crazy music or something like that, or just all right. So they have filed a lawsuit on yeah, right. They filed a lawsuit to. They're saying that educator emails, that teacher email addresses, not necessarily. They're making the distinction that they're saying that they don't want access to the actual emails, but they're saying that email addresses should be public and should be published.
We don't want access to the actual emails, but they should be public information.
The teacher's email address should be public information.
Does that make sense?
Look, so this is one of those deals where.
We're not actually going to email them. That's not what we want. We just want them to be public.
No, that's the thing, is they do want to be able to email the teachers. But here's, I remember, I don't know what it's like now, but I just remember when you were a kid, when you were a student, boy, if there were a teacher's private information was so carefully guarded. You didn't know where they lived. You didn't know anything about them except for the fact that they showed up at that school and did their job and did it well every single day. Now, in this age of the internet, it's getting harder and harder to hide your private information. But the last thing you want is your work email out there, especially if you're a teacher, as public information. And this is, I couldn't imagine what would you.
Why do you suppose they want their email addresses? Is there some information that they want to give to them?
Well, it's spam. It's their own version of spam. First of all, with the way the media, certain media in this town treat them, I think they certainly get their message out loud and clear. People have seen their reports, but I'm not sure why they think that spamming a work email will help their cause.
Who was the group that emailed all of the teachers at CCEA?
Well, that was them.
right when that was during contract negotiation,
that
was
was
it not?
them. That was them, and it was a big mystery as to where
Did they
those.
they say something like you don't need to join a union? That for $25 or $30 a month, you can get just as good legal
Where'd those emails come from?
representation and
How'd they
stuff
get
like
that?
that. And
How'd they get that?
yeah, sometimes you wonder. You know, again, just like when we talked about the safe staffing bill, you're sitting there and you're thinking, where are they headed with this? What's the big deal? Why do they need to have the teachers' email addresses? That's a very dangerous situation because you can, as you know, you can track IP addresses from there. Also,
I just
can you
think
not?
that- well, yeah. I mean, that's true. I just think that this is one of those things. We'll see how it shakes out in the court, but I think that there are certain professions in our community that certainly need their ID protected. We got something else?
Yeah, we
what do you
forgot.
have? I mean, I have. Actually, it's funny because I actually have another bill that I would like to talk about. But what do you have?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
We are. One of the issues that we talked about in the legislature was the more cops.
Right.
So, as you know, back in 2005, the legislature, for those of you who are not familiar with it, the legislature voted back in 2005 to add a half cent to the sales tax in Nevada. So it's at 8.1%. And at the time, they didn't do the half cent. They only did a quarter cent. And it was supposed to be to get more police and more police equipment. There were some provisions on it where you can only hire new police and only provide equipment for those new police. And one of the provisions of the law was your department budget for the police department cannot be going down while you're hiring police and putting them in the more cops. So there was another meeting this week, and Sheriff Gillespie was there, and the chiefs of police from Henderson, Mesquite, and North Las Vegas, and they all, they want this more cops to go through. And there was an amendment proposed by the sheriff asking that they take the restrictions off the money so that they can use it to supplement their budget in the manner they see fit, and also to add another 8 cent to the sales tax on July 1st of 2013 this year, and another 8 cent in 2015 on July 1st, which would be that additional quarter cent, which would bring our sales tax up to a total of 8.35%. So this is something that is growing, and as you know, the more cops, the sales tax money that's collected for the more cops is for an entity like Metro over the years is hundreds of millions of dollars,
Right.
And they have 510 police officers in that, according to the sheriff at this moment. So I believe that there wasn't much opposition other than Veterans in Politics came in and they kind of beat him up pretty badly. But I just don't know if it's a good time to add more taxes to people. I know that North Las Vegas hasn't hired a cops in almost 4 years, and I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So and Metro has been a while since they hired anyone. So as long as we're going to get a bunch of new police, I would be all for it. But that's really the question. So that's something we're going to watch as the session moves along. And I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to bring that up real quick.
It's a good issue.
Because that's going to be a big one.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, let's do one more. So the last one I want to mention today is Senate Bill 427. This was heard today, and just really quickly, it was a bill that expands protections for students from bullying and cyberbullying. I mean, a big issue, and it's definitely a bill that we support, and it's a bill that the Nevada State Education Association supports because this is one of those situations where this is becoming a more disturbing trend, and it helps kids out, and it helps provide a learning environment that is just where kids aren't in fear, and that they can spend their time going to school and actually learning.
Is there any provisions, like if you violated, was there any criminal aspect to it? I didn't read it.
This was the type of bill where it expands things, so it takes into account it does some definition changes, but also it takes into account if the kid is at an event away from the school, so like on a trip or something like that, or if a group comes in and uses the school property and it's a group of children, it includes them as well. So it's pretty broad based. I mean, it's really expansive as far as making sure that the protections are there. So And like we said, it was a busy week. We chewed up half the show just talking about news, and we still have a whole lot more show to go.
Well worth it though, because that was a lot. That was a lot of good information. I know that I had several people call me tonight or today and say they were going to listen in and what are you guys going to talk about? And I told them we're going to give you a good snapshot of how the legislature looked this week and how it's going to look going into the following week.
Halfway through the session. And so much has been done, and there's so
still
much left
here.
to do. Yep. All right, let's take a look at this week in labor history. At the Minnesota State AFL-CIO Convention, Hubert Humphrey, the 38th Vice President of the United States, said, "The story of the labor movement needs to be taught in every school in this land. America is a living testimonial to what free men and women organized in free democratic trade unions can do to make a better life. We ought to be proud of it." This week in labor history, April 1st, 1913. What was to become a 13-week strike begins today in Hopedale, Massachusetts, when hundreds of workers seeking higher pay and a 9-hour day gathered in the street near Draper Corporation loom-making plant. The president of the company declared, "We will spend $1 million to break this strike," and in fact, they did. April 2nd, 1923. The Supreme Court declares unconstitutional a 1918 Washington, D.C. law establishing a minimum wage for women. April 3rd, 1913. Some 20,000 textile mill strikers in Paterson, New Jersey, gathered on the green in front of the house of Pietro Boto, the socialist mayor of nearby Haledon, to receive encouragement by novelist Upton Sinclair, journalist John Reed, and speakers from the Wobblies. Today, the Boto House is a home to the American Labor Museum. April 3rd, 1968. Martin Luther King Jr. returns to Memphis to stand with striking AFSCME sanitation workers. In the evening, he delivers his famous "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech in a church packed with union members and others. He is assassinated the following day, April 4th, 1968. April 6, 1882, is the birth of Rose Schneiderman, prominent member of the New York Women's Trade Union League, an active participant in the Uprising of the 20,000, the massive strike of shirtwaist workers in New York City led by the International Ladies Garment Workers Union in 1909. And she's famous for an angry speech about the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, where she said, "Every week I must learn of the untimely death of one of my sister workers. Too much blood has been spilled. I know from my experience it is up to the working people to save themselves. The only way they can save themselves is by a strong working class movement." And this ends our week in labor history. Let's listen now to this segment of the Martin Luther King Jr.'s inspiring "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech only one day before he was assassinated in 1968.
The issue is the refusal of Memphis to be fair and honest in its dealings with its public servants who happen to be sanitation workers. Now we've got to keep attention on that. That's always the problem with a little violence. You know what happened the other day, and the press dealt only with the window breaking. I read the article. They very seldom got around to mentioning the fact that 1,300 sanitation workers are on strike, and that Memphis is not being fair to them, and that Mayor Loeb is in dire need of a doctor. They didn't get around. Now we're going to march again, and we've got to march again in order to put the issue where it is supposed to be. And force everybody to see that there are 1,300 of God's children here suffering. Sometimes going hungry, going through dark and dreary nights, wondering how this thing is going to come out. That's the issue.
The struggle
about PERS, man!
Pension talk.
All right, pension talk. This is awesome. So, for the listeners that are listening for the first time, Nick and I usually have a segment on PERS, Public Employee Retirement System here in Nevada, so that we can start to educate and continue to educate listeners and members as to what PERS is really about, and maybe take away some of the myths that are being spread by the other side.
Well, I gotta tell you, I read this fact, this little fun fact for the Public Employee Retirement System.
What was it?
Well, it just blew me away. So it basically says that $1 in $10, comes from taxpayers to fund PERS, to fund public employee retirements. The other $9 in $10 comes from both the public employee who pays for it themselves; it's theirs, and also the investments, the return on investments. So. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge percentage that...
they would have you believe that $9 and $10 comes...
yeah.
Right.
Right, yeah. They want you to believe that taxpayers are keeping this thing afloat, that it's barely afloat, that it's struggling, and that it needs to be changed because it's going to collapse and destroy the economy. But that's not the case, not at all.
Right, and then they have an independent investment company that comes in and says, we really want to help you with this because we see bad things coming. And go, really? Because are any of your employees in the PERS system? Well, no, but we want to help you save it. And so that's when you start getting a little suspicious. But I'd like to go over some favorite talking points because I've been getting some feedback. And believe it or not, one of the favorite talking points for legislators and for members alike is the mortgage analogy.
Oh, yeah.
That seems to be really popular, right? Because there are groups like NPRI who says there's a $41 billion unfunded liability, and it looks like it's going to go down the tubes, and then you find out the actual unfunded liability is $10 billion to $11 billion, and then people say, well, there's an unfunded liability. What are we going to do about that? Well, it's set to be paid off in 23 years, just like any other mortgage, and a mortgage is an unfunded liability. So if you bought a house for $300,000 and then you have a car worth $15,000, and if you have a TV that you financed, and those are all unfunded liabilities. So if you have a house, you have a $300,000 unfunded liability. So what they're saying is, we see a problem, Nick, because I know you agreed to pay your mortgage over 30 years, but that bank could come knocking on your door tomorrow and say, you need to pay it all right now, right here. And the premise is that if all the employees retired on the same day, there wouldn't be enough money in the fund to fund everybody retiring on the same day. That's the premise. And by the way, there's 100,000 active members in PERS right now, and I want to say there's another, 30,000 or so that are retired that are not active in the system.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it makes you think about that, and this type of alarmist language that's being used. But the fact is that the idea of a crisis is being way exaggerated to change a system that really isn't broken. That's been serving Nevadans really well for a long, long time, and will continue to serve them really well. This is a retirement system that exists because public employees don't receive Social Security. They don't have Social Security to rely on when they retire. So this public employee retirement system, this pension system, was developed so that when they retire, there's something there. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything there. And so to change it or to undermine it, it wouldn't be fair. It would be breaking a promise to these employees who have decided to give a life of service, basically, right?
So let's say another good talking point that everyone seems to be, gravitating to is for every one person that PERS pays out, they take in 2.5 people. Yeah. So what does that mean? That means, let's say I have a savings account and or I get a paycheck and I spend my whole paycheck that I just got after working for 2 weeks. But at the same time, someone deposits an additional 2.5 paychecks into my account. And what I always say, when I'm speaking about this, can somebody please tell me how you could be putting 2.5 paychecks in a bank account and only spending one paycheck, and how you're going to go broke, how that system is going down for the count, and we all have to, take financial cover, and ask these large, hedge fund firms to take over our account and make sure that we're financially stable, because it doesn't make any sense.
Actually, there is a way. There's a way that that could undermine that equation. And it's actually, if the bill that's being proposed is successful, because the bill that's being proposed would alter the funding structure. It would give people the option of contributing less or not contributing, or it's kind of like it's almost like the pick-a-pay mortgage. It would become a pick-a-pay pension. And the tricky thing about the bill is that it's saying, well, it's not. We're not going to do that. We're not going to let everybody do pick-a-pay. It's only going to be a small part of the population, new hires, and they're only going to be able to do a certain portion of their pension. Right? We're only going to let a certain number of people have pick-a-pay mortgages, and only a certain number of people are really going to use them anyway, because only a certain number of people really understand them.
But there's more. If you make it to your 25 years for police fire, or 30 years if you're a public employee, and you now are definitely getting your retirement, you have another option. Your option is you could take the additional money and you can invest it in a 401k style investment program, and you can also collect the proceeds. So my question was to Assemblyman Kerner when he was presenting this to us. I said, well, how much does it cost to manage that fund? Because you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And what about the transaction rate? What is the transaction cost per transaction? Because if you have people now that have access to their money, and I also said, so then if we do this and we invest that money, you're telling me that you could just live off those proceeds. I said, but what happens if the stock market goes down? Who pays for that?
Yeah, good question.
Well, we didn't, basically we haven't gotten there yet. No one's looked at it and said, this is a really great idea because you guys could all make so much money and your money just wouldn't be sitting there. And then we're like, well, we're actually pretty cool with our money sitting there because we're looking forward to retirement and we don't want to touch it anyway. Right. And they're like, no, but you don't understand. You can have some of it now. And then you say, okay, but what if things go badly? Then what happens? And they go, oh, well, that's your money. You're on the hook for it. If you lose it, you lose it. That's on you.
Yeah, right, right. So this is Assembly Bill 342, AB 342. And, this is another one of these. This is an important one. This is one of those bills that people should go to the legislative website. And I'm going to give you that website address. It's www.leg.state.nv.us. That's leg.state.nv.us. And when you're looking at the webpage, over to the right, there's a little section there called Share Your Opinion on Legislative Bills. You can click on that, Share Your Opinion on Legislative Bills at leg.state.nv.us. And this will give you the opportunity to, voice your opinion on AB 342, on this public employee retirement system bill. And look, it says it right. If you go and you look at the bill, it says this is providing for the establishment of a hybrid retirement program, and that the hybrid part of it is the funding part. It's the part that's going to basically pull the rug out from underneath this retirement system's reliable return on investment.
Let me do a quick analogy.
Yeah.
So the listeners are thinking right now, because they may have that look like, oh, I don't really get that. Let's say somebody came up to you and said, you know what, I'm going to buy your mortgage. I'm going to buy your mortgage, and your mortgage is $300,000 plus whatever money you put down, and I'm going to use it on Wall Street, invest it in mutual funds and hedge funds, and we're both going to make money, and this is going to be great. And then all of a sudden you say, well, okay, well, that sounds like a good idea because I'd like to make some more money. But let me ask you something. What if Wall Street crashes again and things go into the negative? What happens? And they go, oh, well, it's your mortgage, dude. It's not my mortgage. If it goes badly, obviously you have. I'm managing the fund. It's not my money. It's your money. Right. So if things go badly, and then I would, and then we're saying back, the people in PERS are saying back, okay, well, no, thank you. We understand that you think this is a better way, but we're good, because I haven't talked to one person, unless you have, who's in PERS who agrees that we should change anything. It's all these other people, these investors that are around us that think we need to change it.
Well, and it's this type of situation where a system has been set up, a promise has been made that this money is going to be there when they retire, and to pull that out, to pull that away, and to tinker with it. That might, in a way, that might end up harming that. It's not fair. It's not what we do when we make promises to people. So, this is an important issue. AB 342 is a bill that we need to oppose. We need to voice our opinion to Assemblyman Randy Kerner and let him know that that we shouldn't break our promise and that retirement should be there when people expect them to be
Don't
there
be afraid to
after the
shoot
service.
them an email and say
That's
you
right.
oppose AB
342.
342.
Yep.
Jeez, you got,
Nick, what are you laughing at?
oh man, where do you get a load of this? I'm checking out BDRs on the state legislative website.
Well, let me take a look. Wow, we need to share this with our listeners. What should we call it?
Well, I think you got to call it what it is. Irma, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce this week's f***ed up bill draft request.
AB 484, Assembly Bill 484 is a bill that basically let me read the summary. I love the summaries on these things. Authorizes the creation of a county subsidiary corporation, and that's the key right there, in certain counties to provide public health care services. And when you get into this,
Is subsidiary another word for getting paid and getting paid again? Is it?
that I'm not sure.
It
on
is.
that. But so this talks about this is kind of a transfer. This is one of those unlimited power type of things that we like to talk about. And this is a transfer of power from the people to a private entity. This is what this is talking about. And look, there's only one hospital in that this pertains to.
That's exactly right.
University Medical Center, UMC, which is the last, an island as far as a safety net hospital.
Is that the only Is that the only public hospital left in Nevada?
Yeah, well, I think so.
As far as
everything
I know,
in the
it
north
is.
is private. So this is a hospital, and when I say safety net, what that means is, it's exactly that. Its purpose is to serve the community, and everybody in the community uses it, and neighboring communities use it, and it's an important. It has been an important part of Southern Nevada for since the Hoover Dam was built.
Well, let's say it like it is. Here's the deal: if you come from a low-income family or you're broke and you get hurt badly, you're in a car accident, you catch a disease, some kind of infection, and you're on your deathbed, there's only one place you can go. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so every other hospital is privatized surrounding UMC, and then UMC is standing there as a public hospital, and you really have nowhere else to go. And by law, they have to take care. They're mandated to take care of you. And some people argue, that puts us in the hole. But the bottom line is, if you privatize it, and a person were to go in there, basically, by law, all they would have to do is put a little alcohol rub on you and a Band-Aid and kick you back out. You would not otherwise have the opportunity to get proper medical care. And what they've shown is that when you privatize a public hospital, the revisit rate, I believe, almost doubles. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to come back constantly, so you're not saving money.
Right. No, and this is one of these types of things where when you start to you're just reading it. Transferring certain property rights, powers, duties, and liabilities from the county to a corporation that's established, and it's a transparency issue. It's an issue that it's a bill, Assembly Bill 484 that that is We in Nevada definitely opposes. Let's take a look at our next segment here.
Run for your lives! Collective bargaining is under attack!
Don't they know we're just families trying to get by? Why are they attacking collective bargaining? We've never hurt anyone.
So Senate Bill 124 was proposed by Senator Pete Goicoechea and co-sponsored by Assemblyman John Ellison, both Republicans. Right. And basically what we have today for the listeners who aren't familiar is binding arbitration. So if we have a disagreement with a local government employer, we go to binding arbitration. When the arbitrator makes a decision, it's binding, and you pretty much have to live by it. Can you challenge it? Yeah, there's a couple of ways you can challenge it, but it's really kind of a waste of time. And this bill says that hearing officers and arbitrators in certain employment-related matters must be attorneys in good standing, admitted to practice law in the courts of the state, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. So they don't want this giant pool of arbitrators that we can select from.
Right.
They want a limited pool, and they want only attorneys, and only attorneys from Nevada.
Here's the big flaw in this bill. there is nothing that's preventing Nevada attorneys now from becoming FMCS arbitrators.
All right, well, we're going to look at this bill again next week because we are running short on time. And we want to encourage the listeners to come out every Friday night at 6 p.m. right here on the We Are Nevada Talk radio show with your co-host Nick DiArcangelo and Leonard Cardinelli. Don't forget to listen to us online at www.klav1230am.com.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night, Nick.